In this video, we're going to continue looking at the dot format and f-strings, and we can format those variables that are in the curly brackets, and we do it inside the curly brackets by placing a colon followed by things like data types. Some of the data types are a D for an integer, a signed integer, which would mean positive and negative, an I for an unsigned integer, only positive numbers, F for float, E for a floating point number with a lowercase exponent, so 3.5 e to the plus 3 would be 3.5 times 10 raised to the third power, and the capital E would do that exponent signal in uppercase. An S for a string, and with both strings and numbers, we can show also the size we want. By default, numbers are right justified and strings are left justified. For example, a colon 5D says this is a 5-digit integer, or reserve 5 spaces for the integer. A O colon 7D, the O with the dot format would be the positional argument, 7 characters, and it's an integer. Colon 8.2F says 8 spaces and 2 decimal places, the F's a floating point number. And the 5.2E, 5 spaces, 2 decimal places, exponential notation. The 10S is basically 10 spaces for a string. Now, if the variable or string won't fit in the space you've given it, well, it just defaults to whatever space it needs. So be careful there. Okay. We can do a few other things. Again, right align is default for numbers, left align for strings, but I can force something to right align with a greater than sign, less than sign for left, a caret to center it. Use that in headings, but typically that's the only place. I can put a comma to insert thousand separators. Again, the E for scientific notation. If I want base 8 notation, an O, an X for hexadecimal, and I can do a percent as well. So I've got a number of different formatting options, most of which I don't use very often. So here I've got a program and a print statement using dot format, and I've got variables, an integer, a couple of floats, a string Monty Python. And if I just print it now, it basically runs everything together because I've not done any formatting with it. I'll copy this. And Python makes sure you have to indent properly. If I tried to run this now, I would get an error. So I have to make sure my statements line up. And let's come in here, and for num, which is an integer, let's make it colon 8D. Pi is a floating point number. Let's make it 8. I need the colon 8.3 F. So 3 decimal places, even though I've entered it here with 5 decimal places. Num2 is also a float. Let's make that again 8.3 3F, and I again need to remember my colon. And for the string, colon 10S. Now, because the string is at the end, I'm not going to actually notice that. And here, my word numbers is left aligned. The number 42 is right aligned, 8 spaces, so the 2 that it took up, and 6 spaces here. Pi, 8 spaces with 3 decimal places. Notice it shows the third decimal place as a 1 here because the next digit was a 5. It did not round it. It only displayed it with that number of decimal places. And the padding at the beginning. The same thing with the 5.5. And here, my string runs right against my number because my number's right aligned and my string left. I could put a space here inside the quotes, and that would put a space. Now I can do the same thing, but instead of using the dot format, I could use F strings. So I come in and I have to put the F before the quotes. And here I put the variables. So I've got num, pi, num2, and st. And now when I run and see that, I get the exact same output. I prefer the F strings because the variable names are in the curly brackets and I know I've got them on the right order. And let's copy that. Actually, let's copy what we've got here and just change a couple of things. So this time I'm going to actually put number or numbers in curly brackets and make it a string. So put it in quotes and a colon. And I'm going to make it right aligned with the greater than sign and 10 spaces. And it's a string. And you see that it prints it. Oh, I changed the wrong line, didn't I? Let's put this back to the 8S. And this is the one I wanted to change. And I want to right align it. And let's change this to the 10. So we'll see the difference between the left and right alignment. And you see the word numbers is spaced over, so it takes up 10 spaces. And I can do that with strings that way. Order is important. So if I come in here and let me take my string here and put it between pi and num2. And I'm going to take the formatting out. And now it runs it against, because it's left aligned against pi, but the only spacing here becomes the spacing for the number. What I really want to do is format this. In this case, I do want to put a space here so that it will put a space between the Pi and Monty Python. But if I give it, say, a 10S, that reserves 10 spaces for it, plus, of course, the spacing that we had for the number afterwards. And by controlling your spacing, if I've got a table of information and I want decimals to align for numbers, then I can use that formatting, and it gives me a lot of power in controlling the way the output looks. So almost everything you print, other than just a plain old string, probably should be formatted with either the dot format or the F strings. And my personal preference is the F strings.